So, about to start this project here. I got a 2000 Excursion. I've had this truck for several years. Great family vehicle. It's got the 7.3, and my rockers are gone. So, if you're like me and you live in a northern state where they use salt, your truck probably looks like this. So, I'm going to be rebuilding this, and I'll try to do some videos as I go. I've already got this piece right here. You can get that for a quad cab, and it's the same exact piece. I've got the inner piece, this piece right here, that goes the whole length. I ordered that for a quad cab also. It may involve some modification down here on the end to make it work. Unfortunately, they don't sell this piece right here as a patch panel, so I'm going to have to make it. So what I'm going to do is sandblast everything and see what's left and go from there. I'm in the process of pulling this thing off right now. See how bad it is underneath there. It doesn't look so pretty. So I will continue to show you guys as I go through this process. As you can see, both sides are pretty bad. The dog leg on this side isn't as bad. But I'll keep you posted. Alright, so I got those moldings off. As you can see, I got some damage up here. I'm going to have to deal with that. That I could probably patch. I'm not sure if one of those arch moldings from an F350 bed will fit on here. One of the arch, replacements. I may try to get my hands on one and see if that fits on there. Then I could just cut that out and replace it. But as you can see, the dog leg's gone. This piece here is pretty much completely disconnected. So the inner is going to need some patches. The other side is much worse. The quarter panel on this side had been repaired at one point, and then I backed into my neighbor's mailbox and busted out all the Bondo, so I got that to fix. But as you can see, I got a pretty big hole here. The inner is gone right there. This whole area right here is shot. And then, there's nothing left of this dog leg. Unbelievable, so sad. So I'm going to start by cutting off this piece on both sides, seeing how bad the inside of the rocker is all the way down. I want to cut off as much as I can before I bring it to my guy to sandblast it, so that he can sandblast inside there. So let me cut that off and I'll show you. Alright, so I've gone around and drilled out all the spot welds with a 1/8 inch drill bit. I usually buy these double-sided drill bits. These are Irwin's. They seem to last a little bit longer. You can get them at any auto body supply shop, or I think I bought them on Amazon. And then I'm going to go around and use the Blair cutter to finish cutting the rest of them out. Now, when you use a Blair cutter, you don't want to cut all the way through. You just want to cut through that first layer, and that releases the outer panel. And then you got to go real slow with it. Go easy, because the teeth tend to break, but they are like double-sided. See, this one, the teeth are broken off the other side, and I flipped it around. So you don't have to use one of these. You can use a regular drill bit. It just takes longer, and you can also use a grinder and grind them off if you really wanted to. But this is the way I learned years ago, and it's the way I like to do it. So after I cut those off, I'll do another vid. So I got all the spot welds drilled out. You can see I only I did my best not to go all the way through. I don't really want a hole on the back side, you know. So there's a couple of different ways you can get these off the rest of the way. Sometimes the welds don't completely break, so you could just take a screwdriver. I mean, I just pried that a little bit and it popped right off. So screwdriver works pretty good. You can use it, you know, a hammer. You kind of use it as a chisel a little bit and just kind of carefully pry that off. If you need something, if you've got a bigger area you're trying to do, or you need something with a little more meat, you can use an air chisel. I like this tip on here because it kind of cups the spot welds so that it would kind of cut through it. But you got to be careful with this thing because you can do a lot of damage quick. So let me get this thing the rest of the way off, and I'll show you what she looks like in there. So I got that cut off. As you can see, it's pretty nasty in there, and this is why I wanted to look in here. This piece here is shot. This whole thing, it's all crusty inside. So they do sell this piece. As a patch panel, and they sell the another one similar to this thing for the front. So I'll probably end up having to get those too. So even if it doesn't look bad from the outside, these things rust from the inside out. And if you're going to go through and rebuild it, don't skimp. So I'm going to end up cutting this off somewhere around here and splicing it back in with a weld. Probably glue all the seams, all the pinch welds with 3M epoxy, the weld bond adhesive, and so let me do some more cutting and I'll make another video. Alright, so I wasn't sure how the front one was. It didn't look too bad. It looks pretty solid still, but the best way to find out is grab your out-of-body tool pick hammer and start wrapping the bottom. You can hit it pretty hard because you want to find out if it's going to go through. And you know, sure enough, it went right through over here. There's nothing left. So I'm going to cut this section out. Again, that section is the same as a four-door crew cab. So I'm going to cut it out and I'll get my hands on another one. Alright, so I went ahead and got the front section cut off on the top. I'm replacing the inner rocker, so that includes the inner rocker gets spliced onto the floor right here. So that includes this lip right here. So rather than drill them all out, which I started to do, I said, oh, might as well just hack it off with my air chisel. I've got a cutting tip like this. This one's a little worn out, but it works pretty nice. Just be careful with it. And so I just hacked it off. I did drill the ones in the front here because I'm going to attempt to save this piece. I'll have the inside of that all sandblasted out and see what's left. I know that there is a hole on the inner way up in the front there, so we'll see how far this inner patch panel goes on when I put it on. I think it goes all the way up to the front. So this is the inner patch panel I bought. It's for a four-door quad cab. So the rear half of it will be, I'll have to modify that to make it work with the dog leg on the quarter panel. But everything else looks like it lines up just right. So it's going to take some modification, but I'll get it. That piece there was made by this company right here, C2cfabrication.com. and I bought that on eBay. They weren't cheap for the pair. They were like 220 bucks. But if you think about all the fabrication I'd have to do to make both sides, it's well worth the 220 bucks. So I'll keep you posted as I go. So I got the outer rockers and the inner rockers cut off on both sides. As you see, there's some pieces missing out of these. This one's in pretty sad shape. There's like a brace that goes to the floor. I'll end up patching those. This one's pretty solid. The front's bad. Show you guys the other side. I cut off the bottom piece of this, and I'll end up making a piece for that because I couldn't seem to find one online. I thought I had seen one at one point for a crew cab, but I couldn't seem to find it again, so I'll just patch that one. It's pretty solid still. The worst part was just that bottom, and since I'm having it sandblasted tomorrow, you'll just sandblast that too. Yeah, see these little braces that come down from the floor here, they're all gone. And I cut this piece here. I got no light. A little further up, so I'll end up having to put a patch in there too. I'll show you guys that when I start that. So that's where we're at. Alright, so I just got my Excursion back from the sandblaster. I had him do the entire underside of the truck. Cleaned up pretty nice. Any little bit of surface rust, you still see a little bit here and there. It's not terrible, it's not a big deal. If you're using the right product on top of it, as long as it's not scaly, you're good. Even did the cover for the back here. Fuel. So I'm going to be using I'm going to be using this stuff right here, Chassis Saver. And this is a urethane based product as opposed to a enamel based, so it'll hold up a little bit better, and it pretty much sticks to anything. So as long as, like I said, as long as the rust ain't scaly, you can spray this stuff right on there. So I'll do some more videos as I go along. And I was able to track down a couple of quarter panels that were rust free. It's like finding a unicorn for one of these trucks. So I've got quarter panels coming next week, and I'll start cutting these off, and I'll do some videos to show you how to do that. So figured I'd show you guys my unicorns, as I call them, because these things are super rare to find and in good condition and not rotted. Look at the bottom of these things. It's all solid still. There's just a little bit of surface rust here and there. Not bad at all. So I've got a dent in that one I got to fix. But so I had them cut it all the way to this inside seam. I know it's not the greatest thing to see right now, but they cut it along there. So what I'm going to do is drill the spot welds here. The spot welds that go across right here, in through here, and And then I'll drill these out on this side. And I will section it in across the floor here. That way I got the wheel well, I got everything. And then I'll section in on the top. I'll show you guys how I do that. I'm glad that I'm going to do it this way because, as you can see, the crustiness isn't always just on the outside. If you guys have a carpet in one of these that seems to be getting wet, more likely than not, you have a hole. My carpet in this thing is always wet, and I couldn't figure out where the water was coming from. Well, I figured it out. This is most likely caused because of the rear AC unit, just moisture in there, getting into this. So since I'm going to section it here, I'm going to cut this off. You know, I'll grind all this off. I'm going to drill all the spot welds, drill the ones in the wheel well, and that whole thing will come off as one piece. And it's a lot less welding than you would have if you were to do just the skin and the inner wheel well that's actually rotted on this. So it may seem a little bit overwhelming, but it's really not that bad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make some form of a brace. I'll tack weld something on from here up to the top here somewhere to help support the roof and keep the roof in the same spot. We don't want it moving. So I'll probably take something off of that pillar or go to the floor. Right now I'm ready to take the glass out. The glass on these is kind of a pain. It's just bolts that go all the way around. There's 4 that actually hold 2 tabs on that side, and then the unit itself here, the opening unit, that you need to pull off, and it swings open. So that, but there's a plastic piece that goes all the way around the outside that seals the thing. So you got to pull the whole thing off. So I'm just waiting for a hand from somebody to come take those out. I don't want to do it by myself. But anyway, that's where I'm at with these things, and I'll do another video in a few. Right, so I'm getting ready to cut the quarters off of this thing. I've got the inside completely demoed. I still got to take the AC unit out, but got to drain that. So what I did is I put in some cross bracing just to support the roof and the pillar on that side. I don't want that flexing in and out. I want it to stay right there where it is. So I put some cross bracing in, and all I did is use EMT conduit. I'm an electrician, so I had some scrap kicking around. And then I added a piece here to support this corner because I'm going to be taking this whole pillar right out. You want to support the roof with something. And then what I did is I just tack welded it, and I picked this spot because there's a brace underneath here, so it's a little heavier, a little thicker. Glass is out. Glass is kind of a pain on these things. You got to pull all those bolts out all the way around from the inside after you strip the interior, and just very carefully work your way around with a putty knife, and they just use this butyl dum-dum is what I call it. It's just like a sealant that stays soft. So I'm going to start cutting into this thing, and I'll update you guys. I figured I'd show you guys where I'm at. I've made some cuts. I've cut up here. I've cut the outer skin. I staggered my cuts because you don't want them all in the same spot. And I've cut this inner piece here, and then I cut this piece here. And what I had to do is I had to cut out this section here. I made this hole as a support here. So I had to cut that section out from up top down to here and remove it. I will reattach it after, so that I could get to this inner piece, because this is actually got 4 different pieces that connect together. So this inside one, in order to splice it, you have to make an access. So you just cut that piece out, get it out of the way. There's a bunch of spot welds here. Come on, focus. I've already cut these. I've cut these, and I've cut those. There's some in here that I can't really get to, so what I'm going to do is just hack off the old quarter, get it out of the way, and once it's out of the way, I'll finish grinding this and prepping that up for gluing. And then there's a bunch of welds in here. Those I just used a grinder. There's a few down here that I gotta cut into. I'm gonna go into here, this seam here, and then I've cut this here because this there's not a lot of like spots where it's kind of flat and easy to splice unless you go way up. So this was the easiest spot on the inside. There's a nice flat spot here, and I just use my tape line, cut that, cut the outside here. I drilled these spot welds, so the only spot that's really holding it is down here right now. I got to finish cutting it, and then just use whatever you can as reference points. All these holes are the same on all these quarters, so I'm going to measure from here up, or from here down, get my measurement, and then I'll transfer that over to the new quarter to make my cut on that, so that we try to make this gap as tight as possible. Alright, so after about 4 hours of cutting, I finally got the thing down on the ground. As you can see, I got a lot of cleaning up. I'm going to clean up all these spots, prep them up to glue, because I'm going to glue that quarter panel on, not weld it. I'll weld the seams. But you can see there's some welds down here, and in there is that plate that I was talking about. And when they cut the quarter off for me, they left me all the pieces that go inside and slide into that plate. So I'll be able to just glue it right there, and I'll glue it along this seam and over there where the wheel well is. And don't forget about these welds here. I had a hard time getting this separated, and I missed a few welds. I'll just have to hammer and dolly that, and I'm going to have to do a little patchwork here. Yeah, so that's what it looks like with the quarter panel off. I want to show you guys a little trick here. I've got the rocker mocked up underneath here. I had to do quite a bit of trimming on it. What I did is I left part of the old inner rocker here, right on this area here in the center, and I'm going to glue it to the center, to the inside of that, and glue all these edges. And this spot right here was all rotted out too, so rather than try to find that inner piece, I went ahead and made one. And as you can see, I kind of banged out some spots on it so that it fits around these areas here that protrude a little bit more. So that's going to fit in here like this. And what I'll do is glue it, and I'm going to tech screw it right through up in here. And you can even leave the tech screws in there. They're not going to bother anything. So that'll just hold it tight while it dries. So the glue is really what's going to hold it. Yeah. And then to make these indents here, I drew out my lines on a piece of metal about where I wanted the bump outs, and I put it in a vise. I clamped that area here, where my pinky is, in the vise, and then I hammered around it to stretch the metal. So this little piece came out pretty good. Alright, so I've got everything all welded up, and I put a little fiberglass on there. You can see I glued this piece back in along the outside where the seam is, and then I welded all the seams on the butt together on the top and bottom for that piece that I cut off for access to the inner seam here. Everything's all glued, the floor's all glued across the floor here. Make sure you put some kind of a support in before you cut the quarter panels off. I had a piece of pipe here. I tack welded it on the top and the bottom. But here's this side. I'll sand that up and she'll smooth right out. There's a seam on the inside that I welded. Here's the outer rocker on the driver's side. I finished that up on the rear here, and I had to make a little piece of patch here on this just to fill in a gap that the inner rocker didn't go far enough, and the piece that I got from the junkyard didn't go far enough. So I just cut off a little piece of metal that I had and made a piece, and I just glued it in. Easiest way to do it. I had to make some patches for, as you can see down there, for my braces. They rotted right off. So those I glued on too. I overlapped them a couple inches, glued them on, and then glued them to the inner rocker and Tech screwed them on. So that's it. No welding required on this end. I did have to weld one seam. I welded this seam right here. As you can see, I ground that down. I'll do some finish work on that, smooth it off. But that's where we're at. Alright, so update on the Excursion here. I've got the quarter panels all done on. All the body work's done on this side. End up having to do a little bit of body work in here just to smooth out that seam. I'll prime that, and then I'll sand it up and paint it. This is the other side. That one's on. And then there's a new rocker. Just sanded up, ready for paint. Ready for primer. And then this piece here is the piece that I welded in, and I welded it right here along the edge. I just butt welded a piece that I made out of some stock that I had kicking around, and I glued it on the bottom. So I just did a little bit of body work on there just to smooth that out, hide the weld line there. And then the other side, I primed earlier today. So I'll have to blow some color on this. A couple days. I got to prime the other side, and then I'll probably blow color on it both sides at the same time. So looks pretty good. I did the same thing over here. Did a little body work on the bottom there, and it looks good. It's all smoothed out. And then what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use some seam sealer, heavy bodied seam sealer, and I'll just smooth those lines out just like factory. And what I'll do is I'll run a piece of tape down either side of it, and I'll run my bead down, and you pull the tape off. It gives you a nice sharp edge, just like the factory had. And it kind of hides the, there's a little bit of boogers and stuff in there from gluing it on. And it'll kind of hide that and make it look a lot nicer. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. I'll do another one when I get some color on this thing. Video of where I'm at with the Excursion rebuild here. I've got both quarters all done. The door jambs are all edged. The rockers are good. As you can see, I started putting the inside together. I got the glass back in. I left the interior out because I wanted to make sure that the glass didn't leak on me when I resealed it, and it seems to be good. Rear doors are back on. Everything fits pretty good. A little bit of adjusting here and there. I went ahead and hit any spots on the floor where there was some rust bubbles with I call it a hamburger wheel. It's just a real heavy Scotch-Brite, black Scotch-Brite disc, about this big, about 3 inches, 4 inches, and I hit the floor with that, and then I just hit it with some of that chassis saver black just to protect it. The goal is no more rust. I still got a dent I got to fix in this quarter, but it's all back together. Really happy with the way it looks. I'll show you the inside here. Here's the inner rockers. These pieces down here I had to make. They were rotten about halfway up. So what I did is, rather than try to weld pieces in, I cut them right about here and left myself some room so that I could glue on this piece over the top of it, and then I just clamped the snot out of it and put some Tech screws in here with the glue, and that held it right in. I just left the Tech screws right in there and painted over them. They're not going to hurt anything. The same way I did the rockers here. I screwed that piece on. It's glued on the inside right here. I had to do the same thing with this rear brace. As you can see, the overlap right there. Really happy with the way it came out. It looks good. I had to do the same thing on the front piece over there on the patches. You can't really see it from here. But yeah, really happy with the way it's looking. It's all back together. Watertight again. I'm gonna put it outside and work on some other projects. I'm going to finish putting the interior back in it this week so we can start using it again. So thanks for watching, guys. If you got questions, comments, feel free to ask, and make sure you subscribe. Thanks.